Hey guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about contamination OCD and the different challenges that come with contamination. I think every theme has its own unique things that make it a little difficult to work with and also just to experience as well. I think for me, like the biggest thing that stood out for contamination was how much it physically limited my life, right? So there were the list of things that I could not touch, and I mean, that was basically like an endless thing because you can't also then list down every single object in your house, right? So that would take you forever to write down. But it's a physical movement that really gets restricted in so many ways. There are certain things you can't do, there are certain things you can't touch, there are places you can't go, there are vehicles you can't sit in, there are, I don't know, like people that you can't meet. So there's so many different things that go with contamination OCD, and it really like limits your life to kind of like a 1 by 1 millimeter box in a way. And anything beyond that feels extremely scary to even try and do. And I think that as a coach as well, I think what I find difficult with contamination OCD sufferers is when I give them recommendations as to what they can do and things that they can do to improve their life structure or their day-to-day living. Most recommendations I make come with no, I can't do that, because for everything that has to come with some sort of like triggering exposure kind of situation. So I give a small example. If I say to someone that, hey, why don't you at the very least, let's say start going to the gym, right? Or like at least start going for like a walk or for a run or some sort of like exercise just to get yourself out of the house. They might respond with, I don't know, my gym clothes are, in that part of the closet where I don't touch any of my clothes. I don't go there. I haven't touched those clothes in like 6 months, and it's too triggering to even do that. And though even like washing those clothes in itself can become like an exposure, because you don't want those clothes to mix with your other clothes in the washing machine, or you just don't want your washing machine to get contaminated by touching those clothes. So there's so many things that can go with that. And so even just a small little recommendation, such as let's say start going to the gym even just for 20-30 minutes, can come with the limitation of not being able to touch or access some of those clothes. Going outdoor, you have to, let's say if it's going out to see like a friend or someone else, sitting in your own car can be then an exposure. Then it's like, oh, so if you're recommending that I should go out more and see people, then that means I have to maybe go in my car, and then that means I have to clean my car out first and then I can start doing that. And so then it starts another cycle of, and then the conundrum can be, okay, so in order to go out and start accessing the world, I need to first clean my car so I can start using it in the first place. But then, in order to get to a good life structure, am I allowed to do some compulsions initially in cleaning the car first so that I can do those other life structure things? And then maybe I can, touch the car later or something like that, right? So it's like, can certain compulsions become a pathway to like some other good deeds that you can do or not? And so it's the kind of like back and forth with contamination, because everything connects to each other. Literally everything connects to each other. Because if a person has to sit in their car, then that means that those specific pair of clothes that they wear are also going to be contaminated. Then that means when they come inside the house, they have to first take off those clothes and they have to put it in the specific pile of laundry that is only like contaminated clothes and not your other regular laundry that has not been contaminated. Um, will they ever be able to use those clothes again? Where will they put the car keys after using the car and obviously using the car keys, where will they put the car keys? Do the car keys then go in a specific corner of the house where um, your kids or your spouse or other family members will not touch it? Because if they touch that specific corner of the house, then they're going to spread the contamination all over the house. So maybe I should put it in a certain kind of corner where nobody else touches it, kind of thing. Like, so, and then that corner starts becoming like a contaminated corner where you might start piling other things and being like, okay, this is a corner of the house where all contaminated things go. And like whenever I have to use my car, I'll just take my keys directly from this contaminated corner and sit in the contaminated car and go other places. Like there's this entire chain of command that goes around with it. So like a specific exposure is then not like isolated. They all connect with each other, right? So if someone then has to sit in their car just as an exposure without doing any cleaning or washing, then that means that they also have to be able to like touch the door handles of their house. It also means that they maybe have to cook with the same hands as with the same hands that they touch the car with. It means that they shake hands and hug their friends and family with the same hands and the same clothes. And that means that whatever their family and their friends also touch is also going to be then contaminated. so so then it's like, wait, like, so just by doing this one exposure of sitting in my car and not cleaning my hands or my clothes or anything like that, but then I'm like spreading the amount of triggers around in my life. So how do I deal with those? I don't think I can then just do this one exposure and then like literally unleash the contamination all around my life. How do I deal with that? So that's the kind of like physical limitations that come with contamination OCD, and that's where it becomes a little difficult to work with, because it's something that you have to like, it's something that cannot at times as neatly be calibrated as to, okay, today we're going to do this just one exposure and then we're going to do this exposure. No, again, because it connects with each other. Like again, another example is like if someone, let's say, has to cook in their kitchen, right, and they have to touch certain handles and whatnot in the kitchen, and they do that exposure of like, okay, I'm going to touch everything in the kitchen and I'm not going to clean my hands and I'm going to cook as it is. Okay, sure. But then they'll be like, okay, but now do I take these same hands and do I go to my bathroom and do I touch my taps with the same hands as well? Because that's where I do my cleaning compulsions. But like, if my taps are contaminated, how will I even go use the bathroom in the first place? So everything connects with each other that way, and like, so taking it step by step becomes a very confusing thing when you're really severely like in the throes of contamination OCD. How do you take it step by step when literally everything is contaminated and everything is a no-go zone? And I think that's part of the reason that also I avoided my exposures for the longest time, because I could not see how could you even do it in the first place? How could you do it like a step by step thing in the first place? When you barely can even get out of bed or find the energy or motivation to like get out of bed. And I postponed my exposures, I think, for like a good 2 to 3 years. I just did not want to do them. I really did not want to do them. And I think secretly I was also kind of hoping that, oh, maybe I can somehow get away with it, and maybe I can just, or maybe there will be that one day where my brain is finally able to convince itself that it's not that scary, it's not that bad, and nothing bad will happen as a result of cutting out my compulsions. So therefore, I'll just automatically start very comfortably with confidence, start going about my life without fear. Yeah, that day never came. Literally, I waited 2 to 3 years. That day never came. I had to do my exposures with the feeling that something bad might come from this. Something bad might happen. Because if I did not take that risk at all, I think I still would be stuck over here with contamination, and I would not have made any sort of progress. And I think that the step, I mean, it depends on what kind of like contamination a person has, but like if it's the kind of contamination where everything becomes contaminated around you and you barely can touch anything in your house, then that step by step calibration of like, okay, we'll do this and then we'll do this and then we'll do this might not be able to happen. Like you might have to take bigger chunks and much bigger steps in one go, right? So then it's not just like, okay, today I'm just going to touch this chair and that's all. No, like then you touch all the chairs on this table, you touch this entire table as well. You also touch the that other table, that couch. You touch the door handles. You touch the windows, you touch the lamp, you touch the iron, you touch like whatever you can in all that one go, so that you're able to then feel that sense of conquering that, like all those things in your life, all those objects in your life in one single go. Because if you're only like, okay, I'm only going to touch this chair and that's all. The good thing about like contamination OCD exposures is that if you do one exposure of like, let's say touching one chair, it already opens that door and starts a little that momentum rolling to do some of the other ones as well. Okay, I've touched one chair, maybe I can touch the other one as well. And maybe I can do the table, maybe I can also do the coffee table, maybe I can also do the couch as well. So it starts opening that door and loosening up just with that first step that you're able to take with that. And so again, like, because for me all exposures were like level 100 exposure. There was no level 1, level 2, level 3. No, like, because technically like whatever I was afraid was contaminating all those things, it was the same thing. So if it's the same thing contaminating everything, then everything is a level 100 exposure. Nothing is like a level 1 thing for me at all. So I had to do all of them, like almost like, I think I did. It came to a point where I basically did all my exposures across 4 days or 5 days. I literally did all of them. Like I just, I think I kind of like went about it like doing 2 or 3 rooms of the house at a time, kind of thing. 2 rooms at a time. Um, I live in a big house with like all my family members. I used to a couple of months ago, but so I went about it like 2 rooms at a time of the house, and I basically went around everywhere and touched everything that I could. And that's what really helped me kind of like, break that fortress down, because there was no other way around it. If I only did like, okay, today I'm just going to do just the couch of this specific room. I did that, by the way. I did do that, but it did not move anything for me. There were no mountains shattered with that, just with that one exposure at all. Which is why, I mean, and I tried doing those little things here and there, but it did not create any like momentum for me that way. I had to do like, bigger chunks of them. I had to do bigger chunks of them because there was no other way around it. And here's the thing with contamination: you have to remember, one of the core fears with contamination OCD is also fear of being overwhelmed. That's why you're constantly trying to then contain the contamination, or you're trying to contain the amount of triggers or exposures that come your way. Again, just something like not sitting in your car, because you think that if you sit in your car and go somewhere then and meet people with those same clothes and hands and everything like that, it's going to spread the contamination to your friends. Then you might not be able to see your friends and your family again, because they touched you after you got out of the car, and now they have the same contamination. So then you think that, oh, then in their house as well they would have spread the same contamination as well. And then, so it's a fear that your world is basically going to be surrounded by this like sense of contamination, and you're never going to get out of it, and you're never going to stop noticing that contamination. That's how much it will like debilitate you, and it will make it feel really difficult to overcome, right? So, and that obviously becomes compulsive. Trying to contain the contamination becomes a big compulsion as well. So what you really do have to think about is, again, like, is your, well, number one, is your current way of living in trying to contain the contamination, is that something that's actually making you happy, and is it making you a productive person? I mean, I think 100% the chance the answer is to that is no. Is it really bringing any kind of like joy and functionality to the people that you live with? Probably not. Um, is it something that's over time? Is it reducing your fear? It's not. Are your compulsions staying contained, or are they multiplying and increasing? Most likely they're multiplying and increasing because compulsions don't stay the same. Um, is there any chance? Is there any chance that you can start with one chunk of your contamination and start going about that? Is there any chance at all that you could do that? And you really have to ask yourself that hard question. Are you willing to take that risk? And that's where the belief work comes in, which I won't go into today because that's kind of like a separate topic with contamination. And also like, because there are so many different kinds of contamination, so it's also hard to like break down the beliefs of it like in one single video. But that's where the belief work comes in. But like contamination OCD is one of those themes that is also very heavily based in exposures. You cannot recover from contamination until you do the exposures. And they will have to be a very, very integral part of your journey. I mean, exposures are important for other things as well, but like in terms of how many of them you have to do, contamination probably is like the one where I would say it's probably like the highest level of like the most amount of, exposures that you might have to do with that. So I just want to highlight some of these, I think, difficulties with contamination, and also like in working with contamination OCD sufferers, like what are the challenges that even I have to face in trying to give them some homework where I feel like they might be able to budge a little bit or might have some physical movement. And where is it then where is it that you can be pushed a little bit, and where is it that you might have to slightly add a bit more structure. But it really literally depends on case by case, because there's no like blueprint of like, hey, this is how you go about it. There's no blueprint with that. It has to be seen like a person by person and how they're behaving in their specific routine and day-to-day life. But I just want to highlight some of these things. Of course, like this is a topic that I can speak about like for, I don't know, the next hour. Like there's so many things that go into it, and maybe one day if I have like that kind of energy where I can just look in the camera and speak for 1 hour, maybe I'll do that. But that's I don't know. Maybe one day I'll find the time. But let me know what you want me to cover with contamination. It's a again, it's a journey that I'm all too familiar with. Like I was there for nearly 10 to 12 years, really bad with contamination OCD, very severe with contamination OCD. Could not touch literally anything. And I really struggled with a lot of different fears with that, because it kept morphing across the years as well. And I had no clue how to get over it. I mean, I was a teenager, I was a young kid. Like, I didn't even know I had OCD, let alone that, hey, this is what the fear cycle is, and hey, these are my fears, and hey, this is what I'm afraid of. No clue. I was just like, no, I don't want to touch that. And then spending hours every single day doing compulsive behavior. So completely took over my life. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them. Nice to see you guys here, and I'll see you soon. Bye.